Before we start today's video, I wanted to take the opportunity now to articulate a suitable response to a comment I received on yesterday's video, where I was told by a diabolical butler, "Goddamn, how can a British person be the equal of an inbred backwards hillbilly in America? You are truly a horrible person, and will die alone, angry and alone. I fucking hat you." This is from a person who voted against Trump, and someone that is going to report you for using faggot as slander in this video. You are fucking sick. Okay, so a couple of things we should obviously address here. Firstly, I can't tell if this is a joke or not. I'm hoping it is, kind of, but as we are going to play with it as if it isn't, you need to understand context. See, I mentioned faggot a number of times. I mentioned the edible kind. They are called Mr. Brain's faggots, but I would argue that they are disgusting. So instead, you might find things like Count Dankula, a faggot, delicious. Irate Bear, a faggot, delicious. Bearing, a faggot, not delicious at all. So understanding the context is key here, but also again further proving the point that taking offence to a single word, also trying to read this, the grammar alone, was almost as painful as getting a sulfuric acid enema. Thank you. I hat you too. Moving on. So the first thing I want to talk about is the recent banning of Infowars on virtually every single platform you can think of. Facebook, Apple, Spotify I believe as well, and then YouTube as well. Now with YouTube, I wasn't entirely sure if it was because of multiple strikes, although I do know that one of the earlier strikes was because of something to do with children. I don't think that was a valid one at all. I know some on Twitter indicated that had, like wrestling, Alex Jones labelled his channel entertainment as opposed to simply news, so wrestling being sports entertainment instead of sports. I think it was Jeff Holiday that tweeted that maybe Infowars would have a leg to stand on with the kind of news that they put across. I tend to disagree. I think being entertaining is a byproduct of putting across a message. And yes, on some instances, Infowars has in fact peddled what could be described as fake news. But many news outlets do this. They peddle fake news, they lie. Watch the Sky coverage of UKIP. Never in my life have I seen so much fake news in one place. It was disingenuous, on a remarkable level. With these publicly traded companies, privately owned of course at the same time, banning him from their site, it does come across to the majority of people as a political bias in action. And those that celebrated it, because there were some that did, don't realise. This is like when you sentence a comedian for telling a joke, that eventually it will come back to bite you if your views fall out of line with what they deem to be the norm. With the right on the rise, by going out of your way to ban people like Alex Jones and Infowars, you only reinforce the idea that the far left is in control of all of this social media, and that they are using it to ban those with right-leaning ideas from speaking out. I noticed Secular Talk and Sticks, Hex and Hammer did videos on this, and even Secular Talk doesn't agree with this. I noticed Sticks got quite heated, so I decided that was hard. But the points all stand. You shouldn't be banned because of your political views. Now, if he had put across fake news, yes, if he had encouraged violence, of course that breaches terms of service, so I can understand if they are legitimate. But as it happened, it's quite a surprise, really. Unless you're about to tell me it wasn't any of that, and it was entirely to do with those supplements, loaded with soy. Anyway, I wanted to end my view on this and make it quite clear. I do not support banning anyone from a platform unless they are actively putting out a message that encourages violence, or encourages touching children, because honestly, you guys deserve to be kicked off the platform. And other such things that break the terms of services for YouTube. I'm not entirely sure what Apple's position is, and I know that originally it wasn't all of the podcasts, and I know Spotify didn't remove all of them either initially, so it's quite interesting to see what happens next. And I'm curious to see how Infowars adapts to this, because if this is because of an attack on people because of political views, and not because of a breach of terms of service, Infowars could in fact seek legal advice, if they haven't already. And I'm interested to hear what all of you think on this, because I think a dangerous line is being crossed if people are being silenced because of political views. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I thought we'd finish with an article. Interest. For those that don't know, I actually have a real passion for this particular history. So when I saw the article, Yes, I couldn't stop laughing. Activists demand more social justice in medieval studies. Right. The first thing I thought when I saw this was, if we had the ability to time travel, I'd go back in time and grab someone from just before the introduction of the Doomsday Book. You'll understand why in a minute. I'd bring them here now and I would explain to them if possible. I'd try and explain to this peasant how society has changed. And I'd try to explain to them what intersectionality is. And even show them that the workshops that they wanted to introduce, which include How to be a White Ally in Medieval Studies 101 and Toxic Medievalisms, I honestly believe had I managed to convey this to them, they would be the very first person to coin this, because they probably would have when the Doomsday Book was introduced. They probably would have said, "You fucking what, mate?" I'm trying to think about the regional dialect from that time. I don't think those words really existed much. Oh dear. A group of medieval studies scholars is threatening to boycott next year's International Congress on Medieval Studies to protest the rejection of sessions proposed by medievalists of colour. Oh. When I turf your houses, I bet I'm going to find more stuff in them than I would a regular peasant's. You know what that means? It means you're going to pay more tax, bitch. Conference organisers, and then it lists the medievalists, were rejected based on standard criteria such as a lack of intellectual justification. Understandably so. Toxic medievalisms? What? Let's proceed with this and see if we can figure it out. A prominent association of medieval studies scholars has pledged to boycott the discipline's largest annual conference over a lack of social justice programming. Social justice didn't exist then. People had no rights then. It's history. You can't introduce this shit on history. Do you know why? Because it's already happened. You can't change and distort perception to suit an agenda, you retarded ideologue. On July 11th, the Babel, let's go say Babel, fuck it, working group published an open letter to the organisers of the International Congress on Medieval Study, which is planning to host its annual conference of about 3,000 academics in Western Michigan University in May 2019, outlining two concerns about the conference. Wow, this sounds tasty. Let's have a look at the letter. Note, by the way, it's signed by quite a lot of people. Retards, by the way. Letter of concern to the ICMS, Kalamazoo 2019. If you share the concerns expressed in the following letter, you are invited to sign by filling out the form below. Blah blah blah. Let's move on to the open bit. This is a statement of concern regarding some of the programming decisions for 2019's ICMS Kalamazoo, as well as how those decisions have been made. The letter was drafted by the steering committee of the Babel working group, and then opened for others to sign. We have two concerns. First is that there seems to be a bias against, or a lack of interest in, sessions that are self-critical of medieval studies, or focused on the politics of the field in the present, especially relative to issues of decoloniality, globalization, and anti-racism. The second is that there is a profound lack of transparency around the process by which ICMS programming decisions are made, an opacity that is out of line with the norms of academic conferences and harmful of ongoing conversations in the field. Can you kindly explain to me what the fuck decoloniality is? Honestly, I've never seen that word in my life. Okay, I'm gonna Google it. Give me a second. Is a term used principally by an emerging Latin American movement which focuses on understanding modernity in the context of a form of critical theory applied to ethnic studies, not remotely relevant to medieval studies. You absolute muppet. Astonishing, isn't it? Regarding a bias against critical reflections on medieval study. Here is an incomplete list of sessions rejected for ICMS. Well, here we go. Right. Globalizing Medieval Pedagogy. How to be a White Ally in Medieval Studies 101. Translations of Power, Race, Class and Gender Intersectionality in the Middle Ages 1 and 2. What? Decentering Privilege. We're done. Nah, we're done. Nah. Oh dear, oh dear. I'm of the firm belief that anything should be up for debate. Understandably so. Certainly when it comes to history, we are never going to truly understand what happened, other than what we have as sources. And no source is truly unbiased, other than the information that is taken directly and managed to have been held for so long. I get that, but some of the proposed modules come up with, or topics, are actually insane. They have no relevance to medieval studies at all. And I say this as somebody who has spent an inordinate amount of time doing his own research, because it was something I grew up on. It was something I did in school. It was something I was very passionate about. I especially liked the bit where one of the kings went up north, beat someone, then stupidly came all the way down to be beaten because he was so fucking tired. That was good. Just to finish up on the article before we conclude today's video, the letter goes on to invoke the current political climates here in the US and abroad as justification for why the rejected workshop proposal should be reinstated, suggesting that the field of medieval studies should serve as a site of resistance against the darker forces of nationalism and academic freedom. Do you think medieval Britain or medieval times was globalist? You sure you want to commit to that one? I think you should all have your academic credentials taken away. You special little snowflakes. Anyway, I might, in the near future, if any of those modules crop up again, go into them in detail with what I know to argue with what they think they know. So I hope everyone has a lovely Tuesday. Thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your ass.
Imagine my shock